The last 10 years have kind of been my Bloodborne era, my Bloodborne/Dark Souls era. So Elden Ring was obviously the natural successor to Dark Souls 3. I think Elden Ring did a very good job of bringing the best aspects of it with the lore, the art style, the difficulty, the bosses, the art direction, but then it meshed it with open world that didn't make it overwhelming, but I feel like it made the genre stronger. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Millennial Button Mashers podcast. This will be episode 5, part 2. For those that haven't already tuned in to episode 5, part 1, definitely feel free to pause here, go back to that first episode where we talk about the games throughout our adulthood lives that we feel deserve some extra attention and some extra love. Almost game of the year style for the 2016-25 era. We did chunk this up into 2 episodes where we talked 2020/2021, and we'll continue the conversation for this week's episode where we'll close out 2021 all the way to 2025. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, share with a friend, and comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just please be kind to others as you listen to this podcast and as you comment below. With that, let's jump in, friends. Okay, cool. All right, so we just talked about your game of the year there, Gavin, for 2021. I'll go on mine, and I think this one's actually interesting because I picked Resident Evil Village. It wasn't a clear standout for me. Like, I actually was looking back at 2021, and I really struggled with this year. I don't know why. Maybe it was a carryover from the COVID era, and I was playing, maybe just like those comfort food games. Maybe that was like the reinvigoration of what I've played before. I'm not entirely sure. But the reason why it's interesting is because Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil Biohazard, I actually preferred Biohazard. Those were the first Resident Evil games that actually really hooked me, and I wonder if it was because of the first-person nature of it. So, for those not familiar, Resident Evil, very long-standing series. I want to say it started in like the early 90s, maybe. And I think back in that day, it was similar to Silent Hill, where it was a third person, kind of horror-esque action video game. And they're making a new one that's coming out in February as well, Resident Evil Requiem. And they're reintroducing some of the old characters, so that should be interesting to see. But I think the reason why I liked Resident Evil Village and Biohazard was because it was first person. That makes it obviously scarier for me, at least. But I think the cool thing about Resident Evil was it was kind of let's go to Biohazard first. Resident Evil Biohazard was kind of like a spin on Texas Chainsaw Massacre almost, but it was also very zombie-esque. It was also kind of like Haunted Mansion style. Like, you got stuck in one place. There's people that were crazy that were chasing you. Kind of zombie-esque, but not really. But there were a lot of puzzles. And I think the most compelling thing for me about both of those were, one, it was super scary at the time, at least for me, because of that first person point of view. But also, you had to go to certain areas because you had to find like a key or a piece of a statue or whatever. And also, the inventory management system was very scarce too. Like, you would get 5 bullets every half hour or so. So you had to be very tactical about when you would shoot things, when you would, use your knife, or how you would carry things. Because obviously you only had a certain amount of inventory you could keep track of. And also, if you carried like a shotgun inside your inventory, that obviously took up more space that you couldn't put like healing ointment. You couldn't put like shotgun shells in there. You couldn't put additional bullets. So I think, and that's not something new. That's what Resident Evil always kind of has had. But I think with Resident Evil Village and Biohazard, they really introduced some new storyline to it. And I kind of think reinvigorated the series, especially for people like me that hadn't been exposed to it before. But I guess, Gavin, have you played Resident Evil even in like back in the old days?
Yeah, back in the day, I did play it quite a bit. It did for fun. I looked it up. It did come out in 1996 is when the first one came out. So
There you go. Yep.
good call there. The first one I ever played was Resident Evil 4,
Yeah, which they
and
just remade, I think, because I
yeah, a
played that one
couple
too.
back in 2023 they remade it. That was one of the first one, or that was the first one I played. And it was just a super fun game. I still remember I have a memory burned into my brain forever of one of the character you're playing is Leon,
Mhm.
and the way one of the female characters just said, "Leon!" Like, just the way she said Leon is just burned into my brain forever. It's just like it used to be a joke with me and my roommates back in, like, little bit post-college era, like, we would yell at each other like that just randomly, and it's like,
Leon!
"Leon!" It's just
Oh
yeah.
my
So,
god.
like, yeah, it's forever burned into my brain because of that, and, yeah, I hadn't thought about that when you brought up the first person thing. That is an interesting I hadn't thought about the fact that it was the first one to do that. That probably did make it a lot scarier for people, and I wonder if they leaned into that because, like, horror games had become a lot more popular.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
interesting to think interesting, thought experiment there.
Yeah. I think it makes it significantly scarier because, I mean, there's obviously science and, you know, truth to this, but basically, if it's in third person, your field of vision is extended, right? Of course, like with the nature of it. But like if you're in third person, you might be facing one direction, but you can still kind of see out of the corner of your eye something that might be coming your way in third person, even if the character technically shouldn't quote unquote be able to see it. With first person, that's not the same. Like your field of vision is locked in. And I think that made it a little bit more engaging for me. It made it scarier. It made it feel like you were more on edge. I don't know. But yeah, those were the first
It makes
two
it
that started doing that in that
Yeah, it
series.
makes it feel like it's happening to you.
Right.
Like, if it's third person, because it's like, "Oh, I'm watching like, I'm playing this character and that stuff's happening to them." Whereas if it's first person, it's like, oh, that thing's attacking me." Like,
Right.
"Oh my gosh, I'm terrified right now because holy crap, it's jumping out at me." Like, it takes, like, it adds a layer of, like, suspension of disbelief to where you're like, it affects you and scares you because it looks like it's happening to you. I think
Right.
that's what a lot of horror games, like, lean on, obviously, but I think that's what the Resident those ones did very well
Yeah,
is
for sure.
for with adding that.
Yes. And I think now that I'm thinking back to this, I think one of the limiting fast factors for me for Resident Evil and Silent Hill actually at the time was, do you remember when they had like the unique, and I don't like this movement mechanic, but they had like a camera in the corner of the room and it would basically move based off where you were going? I freaking hated
It's
that. I
fixed
know
camera,
I
yeah, the
hated
fixed
it.
camera, yeah,
Some
yeah.
people loved it. I hated it. And I think that was why I never played those games. Cause I mean, and the fact that I only got into horror games post college or like in that college era for me. Before that, I was too terrified to play them. But I think that style of like fixated view, not, I wouldn't even call it third person, it's fixed view.
Yeah, it's fixed camera, yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't like it. So I think,
It I think
yeah,
that's the, platform gamer in us because when we're
right,
platform game like, a lot of the games, you can use the right control stick to control the camera so you can see where you need to jump for certain stuff and, like or how to figure stuff out, and it's like, it makes the game harder because 'cause we've been coded to think, "Oh, how do I maneuver this camera?" So you don't.
right,
You just
right.
don't. Like, so it's I think that's a little bit of the platform gamer in us because that also frustrated me too about a lot of those games where it's yeah, the camera's all the way back here, and then what you see is what you see. Like,
Right.
yeah, it
Exactly.
ruins like it makes perspectives on certain things harder.
I think it's less immersive too. I don't know if you would agree with that too, but like
Yeah,
if I don't know where the camera angle is gonna shift to based off my movement, that kinda takes me out of it, and it's like I mean, I feel like that's part of what makes horror
I think
games fun is, like, the immersion nature of it, where that just takes me out of it, I guess.
yeah. It kind of adds like a little, I guess, its own scary aspect because you
Sure.
don't know how the perspective's going to change.
Yeah,
Like
that's fair.
it's not like a jump scare traditionally, but it kind of like oh it's this angle. Like it. I wonder if that's part of the reason why they did it too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
on to 2022. You've got a game you've talked about ad nauseum, and I've got a game I've talked about ad nauseum. So would you like to go first?
Yes, I can go first because this one will be quick. And the funny thing is, I didn't realize this until, like, just now, but basically the last 10 years have kind of been my Bloodborne era, my Bloodborne/ Dark Souls era. So Elden Ring was obviously the natural successor to Dark Souls 3. I think just to put this simply, because I think we've talked about it ad nauseum before, Elden Ring did a very good job of bringing the best aspects of it with the lore, the art style, the difficulty, the bosses, the art direction, but then it meshed it with open world that didn't make it overwhelming, but I feel like it made the genre stronger. And I was actually very skeptical of Elden Ring when I first got into it because we've talked about this before. I prefer linear games of beat the levels based off 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's kind of how Dark Souls and Bloodborne was before. There's some open world nature to it, but it was very much like you knew where to go. You knew where to go to the next boss for the most part. Elden Ring was very much the opposite, where basically you start in this little, I don't even know if you'd call it a village section of the map called Limgrave. You open it up,
Mhm.
very beautiful. Like you emerge from this cave and you have no idea where you're going to go. Like, I think there's like a natural, like, line of sight. You eventually learn how to go towards the main story with the bonfire system. Like, once you go to the first bonfire, it actually points you to where you're supposed to be going at the start of the game. I didn't realize that
Interesting.
until I was like 2 hours into the game, so that didn't help me much. But literally, if you go to the right of the opening world in Limgrave, there's a dragon over there and it'll kick your butt. If you go even further, you'll go into like a super challenging part of the area or the map. And I think the cool thing is, excuse me, I'm a little nasally, but the cool thing is about Elden Ring, it was kind of like a choose your own adventure. Like if you weren't able to progress past the first boss, which was very challenging, you could go and basically farm out your XP and go build yourself up, go find weapons. There was just a lot more to do outside of just the traditional finding the next boss, beating it, going to the next boss, beating it, etc. So I thought that was very compelling. And it also made it very much repeatable in terms of repeatable as in terms of playability, because you would never have the same experience every single time. Like there's just too much to do. And like there was even sections of the map where like you would find an elevator and it would go down to like a secret area which doubled the map size, which was just incredible. I think still to
Yeah.
this day, a lot of people love it. They obviously made Elden Ring Night Rain in that same map, which kind of made a multiplayer component. Again, I'm trying not to talk about it too much. I love it. I could probably talk about it for an hour. Gavin, I'll give you the floor to talk about
Yeah.
your
My
choice.
game is a game I won't beat too hard into the mic here. It's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I got the Violet version, but it's kind of the game that got me back into Pokemon. Like, not that I
Yeah.
was ever out on Pokemon, but I kind of wasn't playing the games as often and as frequently as I used to. This game got me back in. First one on the Switch, first one on, like, not on the Switch, but the first one they kind of did like a Breath of the Wild style game where you can go anywhere. There's an implied path you're supposed to go based on, like, the levels of the gyms and stuff. So, like, there is technically a correct path, but you can go roll up, as soon as you get your first Pokemon, you can roll up to the gym that's like level 50. I mean, it's gonna be very hard, but you can do it. And that was cool. I don't know, just it was a good installment of Pokemon. Once we get into I can get super deep into it when we get into our Pokemon Day episode that here coming up in a couple weeks. But yeah, that would be my 2022, and then if we wanna jump forward to 2023, I will, just briefly go over Baldur's Gate 3 because 'cause we've talked about that game quite a bit, and it's probably gonna get its own episode here. But yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 was one of mine for 2023. There's not
Nice.
much more that needs to be said right now, and then the other one was the sequel to, Marvel's Spider-Man for the Spider-Man PS4.
Yes. Yes. One thing quickly going back to Scarlet and Violet, that was actually one of the first Pokemon games I had played
Mm.
probably since our early childhood. I think you and I had talked about this.
Mhm.
With me getting late exposure to Nintendo Switch, I actually had like a almost hunger to get back to the Pokemon series in some capacity. Scarlet and Violet were the newest ones in the genre, I guess, the chronological order of where we were with Pokemon at the time. But I actually really liked it. I think that the cool thing, Gavin, to your point, is like
Mm.
it was kind of choose your own adventure style. The map was open to all. Obviously, you'd get your butt kicked if you went to the wrong area. That's fine. But there was plenty of times where I was playing that game, and I remember I did go the wrong direction. I ended up beating that Pokemon gym boss somehow, but it took me forever to do so. But then I would work backwards and then I would find like lower level Pokemon Gym owners or leaders
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
was supposed to beat before that, and then I, like, kicked their butts even, like, tenfold. It was the easiest battle
Yeah.
that I had ever had. So I think it was really cool. The other interesting thing was you could ride your own Pokemon, like, almost as, like, the bike that you used to have back in the old days, so I thought that was kinda hilarious too. But I think it was cool too because Pokemon at the time, well, the Pokemon we remember as kids, like, it was very much like you couldn't see Pokemon out in the wild. You could only see them, like, you would go through, like, dense grass, and then you would roll up on a Pokemon battle versus with these, and I think Arceus actually started this kind of,
Yeah, that's what I
you
was
know
gonna say. Pokemon Legends Arceus. They
Yeah,
they use that game as a testing for that game, I believe. But
I agree. Yeah, to see if, like, it would work from, like, a mechanics perspective, and I think it does to an extent. And so the cool thing was, like, you would be able to see the Pokemon out in the wild. The other thing that I liked as well, in terms of training up your Pokemon, was the fact that you could just, like, literally send them into battle without having to go into a battle. So, like, you could send your Pokemon to go fight a Pikachu that was on the side of the road, and you would still get the XP from fighting, but you didn't have to sit there and wait and do the turn-based style of fighting. It kind of just gave you the opportunity to reap the rewards of the fight, but also not take you completely out of the immersive nature of the game, if that makes sense. So, like, I think it
yeah.
did that really well from that aspect, game mechanic.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it
Nice, nice.
it did a lot of things well. I'm excited. They haven't formally announced, but I feel like this year there is going to be a new game. They haven't formally
Oh,
announced it,
there
but everyone's kind of
has to be.
speculating timeline-wise, with it
Yeah,
being the 30th anniversary, and then also just that game's been out since 2022. This is 4 years. Usually that's around the cycle when they create a new game, so that'll be exciting.
very exciting. Yes.
And,
And I thought there was another game that came out recently in the Pokemon universe. No, maybe not.
yeah, it was so they did another Pokemon Legends game. It's
Okay.
the Legends ZA. It takes place in
Yes.
the Unova regions, but it's technically not a mainline Pokemon game like the Pokemon Legends Arceus wasn't,
Hmm.
but it's kind of signifying the start of a new, and that's another reason why people are believing that a new Pokemon game is going to come out, because Legends Arceus came out at the beginning of 2022, and then at the end of 2022 is when Scarlet Violet came out. So people are thinking because the Legends ZA came out in the holiday season this past year, that this year they're going to announce and release a new Pokemon game, especially because they're trying to promote the Switch 2 as well. So I have no doubt that that's going to happen.
For sure. And do we know who is creating the new Pokemon? Well, potentially new Pokemon game. Like, is it the Pokemon Company? Because the
So
reason. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just going to say the Pokemon Company is technically like three different companies that are
Mm,
conglomerated into one, and each of them handles a different aspect of it. But so it'll still be the Pokemon Company,
I gotcha.
because they're the
Okay.
ones that still, like, Game Freak still develops the game, and they're part of the Pokemon Company. And yeah, so it'll still be a Game Freak game,
I
which is who
gotcha.
the original developer is.
Cool. The reason why I ask is because, and I'll actually bring up my screen for the folks watching. Game Freak is actually in the process of developing their own new style of game. So they're kind of getting away from like the Pokemon series into something a little bit more kind of quasi Souls like. I mean, they're even coining it as a Souls like, called Beast of Reincarnation. It looks very cool from an art direction perspective. It looks very different from what I would have anticipated a Game Freak to go for, but very, very cool. I'm excited about it. It's supposed to be dropping sometime this year, which is kind of interesting, especially given, part of their business is probably working on the new Pokemon. But I don't know if you had heard about this, Gavin. This is right
I
up
had
my
not.
alley, but yeah, it's Game Freak, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no doubt that they've probably got, like, within Game Freak, they probably have a developer, like, probably have a chunk of people that only work on Pokemon stuff. Because
Yeah.
like I was saying, that, like, Pokemon Company is kinda like 3 different companies. They have, like, Game Freak only does the video game stuff, and then Nintendo does some of the other stuff, and then the Pokemon Company itself does, like, the TCG and stuff, like trading card game and, like,
Yep.
merchandise and stuff. So it's like it's kind of weird, but it should still be a Game Freak game.
Yeah. We shall see. We shall see.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we're in 2023 now. Yes, yes. Yes, Hogwarts Legacy. Man, okay. So I think for those that don't know, I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd. I love pretty much all the Harry Potter movies and books. I will say I'm not as hot on the shoot, what's his name? I mean, his name's Newt Scamander, but I can't think of what the series
The
is. Why am I blanking on
Fantastic
that?
Beasts, Fantastic
That's
Beasts
it.
and Where to Find Them. Yeah,
That's right.
they turned a school textbook into a movie series.
Right. Which I
They should
think,
just
yeah, in my opinion, they should have just moved on and kept it with the core storyline and kind of they could have made those into separate books if you wanted to. I'm sure they did. But I feel like that was a money grab, to be completely honest. I didn't think the stories were that compelling. I think Newt Scamander as a character, like, he's just kind of awkward and weird. I mean, that's a sidebar, but like, regardless, I love Hogwarts. I love Harry Potter. I love the lore. I love everything about it, other than those movies, of course. But Hogwarts Legacy was interesting because it had been developed for so long. It had a long lead up time, a lot of hype behind it. And honestly, I was kind of terrified that it was going to flop just because of how much hype was behind it. Luckily, it didn't. Like, it definitely held up to what it was supposed to be, at least for me. I think they could have done some things better, but for what it was fantastic. Really, it was kind of a good rendition of how it kind of feels to be an actual Hogwarts student and being able to kind of create your own journey. And I think that's one thing that I wish it kind of leaned into more. Like, this is going to sound nerdy, but I almost wish it was like you're a day one Hogwarts student. You go get to like pick your house, which they did in this one as well. But I wish it could have been like, okay, you get to pick what you want your career to be. So like your OWLs, like progressing towards being an Auror or a herbologist or whatever. I thought that would have been really cool. Maybe they'll do that with Hogwarts Legacy too. Apparently that's something that works right now. We'll see. But I think they did a really good job of kind of a love letter to old Harry Potter games, but also allowing to take creative liberties on both the Fantastic Beasts series, but also the Harry Potter series, and kind of molding the two together into one seamless world that was very unique and very cool. And honestly, I mean, you could live in that game just with how big it is and how big the castle is and all those different things. So I thought it was very cool from that perspective of a lot of repeatability as far as playing goes. The only thing it didn't have in it was Quidditch. And I think you and I had talked about this before, Gavin, how they didn't have a full blown out Quidditch part of the game. Like, you could fly in it, but Quidditch wasn't included. But the reason for that, I think, was because there was like a Quidditch World Cup, Quidditch Champions game that came out that actually ended up flopping. I don't think they created it, like the video game developers that had Hogwarts Legacy, but that's the reason why they didn't have it, I'm pretty sure, was because there's already another game being made for that, and
yeah.
they didn't want to take money away from that franchise that was already being developed. But really looking forward to potentially Hogwarts Legacy 2, and hopefully they'll make what was already a good game even better.
Yeah, that right before you said it, the only thing I was to say I wish they had in it was Quidditch because that would be like I probably if it did that school type thing, if they just made it purely like in your school, like I want to be the seeker for whatever Ravenclaw or whatever house, and I want to be the best seeker possible.
Right.
You know,
Exactly. By the way, Gavin, do you know which Hogwarts house you are?
I don't know. I feel like I feel equal
I don't know.
parts. Well, because I feel like I'm equal parts Gryffindor and Hufflepuff. I don't know. I just
That's a good
kind of I
mix.
feel like I vibe with both of them, and like if I applied myself more, maybe I could be a Ravenclaw, but it's just too much work. So like I just be a chill Hufflepuff. But then sometimes I feel like I could be a Gryffindor.
Hmm, all right.
How about
Well,
yourself?
I'm technically a Gryffindor. I've taken the test like 65 times. That's not even like an exaggeration. So, funny story, like, my husband and I went to Universal Studios down in Orlando probably 3 or 4
hmm
years ago at this time. They obviously have, or maybe not obviously if you guys aren't aware, but they do have two Harry Potter worlds that are built out into each of the parks. And they also have a third park that we're going to later in February, which I'm excited to see. But they have basically Harry Potter worlds broken out into each of the parks. And so, being there was like you could go to the wand shop, you could go buy merch. I didn't do any of that stuff, but it kind of got me thinking about like which house am I truly, because they've always made like adjustments to the test and they're dialing it in terms of what house you typically would be in if you were actually in that world. So I actually sat there at dinner with my husband and I just took the test like 10 times. And I think originally when I took it back like 5 years ago, I was like a Ravenclaw. And I was actually very proud of that because like their Ravenclaws are traditionally a little bit, they're wise, they're intelligent. Like I was very proud of that. And then I got Gryffindor over and over and over and again. And I was like, well, what if I tweak this answer? Or what if I wanted to say this before? What if is it going to change my result? No. And so I'm a Gryffindor. I'm proud of it now. At the time, I wasn't and the reason why I wasn't proud of it at the time was because I feel like everybody either wants to be or is a Gryffindor, and it's not as unique. And so I am a Gryffindor, but I do like you said, Gavin, like I have Ravenclaw like tendencies as well. So I think basically, if you're anything other than a Gryffindor, like I'm somewhat jealous of you because like Harry is obviously made Gryffindor normal, not as cool. Vanilla, I'm vanilla. So, anyways, but I'm a Gryffindor. So
That's fair. I'll have to retake that recently because I don't remember. I think I took it when I was really young, but I haven't taken it since. So maybe I'll do that and let you know.
report back, please.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool. You want to go into 2024? We've talked about this game before, so I'm excited for us to revisit it.
2024 for me was Balatro. I mean, yep, we've talked about it quite a bit, but it's a roguelike, poker roguelike, where you build the best hand possible to try to beat each blind, and you get jokers that make your scoring go differently however they do it. And yeah, that game was a game that I was constantly playing in 2024.
And you're playing it on PC or mobile?
PC and mobile. It's a game I've bought twice and paid for twice and got my money's worth at least. I mean, I feel like I've taken money from them with how much I played the game.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
get you. I love Balatro too. I think I was skeptical getting into it because, again, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Roguelikes aren't necessarily my thing. And I was also very skeptical because I bought it on mobile first. And I'm just not a mobile gamer for the most part. Like, I've never really gravitated towards any games that are on the App Store, like Apple App Store or Android. Just never have. But Balatro blew me away. I think the repeatability, the playability, the fun jokers, honestly, frankly, the art style too behind those jokers too, just like how fun they are, really hooked me. I haven't played Balatro in quite some time, but that's one of my games that like if I'm bored in an airplane or I'm waiting somewhere and I have some time on my hands, Balatro is what I pull up on my phone. So highly, highly recommend it if anybody has not played it this listening. I think for me, 2024 was interesting as well. I put two different games down for this one. Bought which for those not familiar, it was a Sony-based title, PlayStation 5. I don't know if it was on PlayStation 4. It might have been as well. Basically, though, if you've listened to us before, you know Gavin and I like 3D platformers. It was the remaking of those nostalgic 3D platformers for me. And I think the cool thing that Astrobot did really well was it did things uniquely, made things fun. It also had unique mechanics where basically each level you would get like a buff, basically, where you'd have like a jetpack or you would have like these, gloves that would like punch things or whatever. And it just made each world very fun. But the other thing was you were basically saving other characters in each level. And the characters that you would save would be famous Sony IP. Like there was the Hunter from Bloodborne. There was Sly Cooper that you could save, Jack and Daxter, you could also save Ratchet and Clank, different Astrobots. Like just so freaking cool from like nostalgic plays for me personally. So it was always cool just to see like which characters am I saving this time? Like they even had like a Horizon Zero Dawn bot that you could save. So I think Astrobot did a really good job on like the nostalgia play for me and made things fun in that way. And then on the other side of that coin, which is completely opposite, Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth Wukong was very similar to Elden Ring, very similar to like kind of Dark Soulsy, but for those not aware, Black Myth Wukong was developed by a Chinese studio. Very first game that they had done that wasn't a mobile game, which I definitely give them props for. And then Black Myth Wukong was kind of Souls-like-esque, where it was the retelling of the Chinese mythology, which was called Journey to the West. I still have that on like my TBR, to be read list, because that actually is a book that you can read. And it's basically all about Chinese mythology and, for lack of better words, I haven't read it yet, the Journey to the West telling of the story. But basically you are the Monkey King and you start the game in tutorial mode with all of your powers. You basically have a kick-ass staff that you can hit people over the head with. You have like these special abilities. You can freeze time. You can go into like a stone mode to parry. So like if somebody hits you, it basically knocks them back a couple steps and then you can go and attack them. Very cool, very linear, very pretty art style. But I think it did two things really well for me, at least. It was linear in nature, very much like a Souls-like, which obviously I'm a sucker for. And then it just had a really cool story to it. And I think the one other unique thing to it was it wasn't levels based, but it kind of was, where there was like phases of the world that you would go through. Like the very first world was very not tropical, but kind of like very forest vibe. The second world was in a desert, and you had to beat the major boss to move on to the next world. But the cool thing too was you had one major boss each world that you played, but you had several like mini bosses. And some of the bosses were mandatory, some of them weren't. So it's kind of choose your own adventure style. I personally feel like Black Myth Wukong Kong probably should have won Game of the Year in 2024. Astrobot ended up winning, which again, I think was well worth it and well deserved. But those two games I hold in high regard to this day. I still play Black Myth Wukong every once in a while just to like get my feet back under me with that kind of game. And then I play Astrobot 2 quite frequently as well because they do a lot of revamping of levels, adding new content in. So they both do things really well.
Yeah.
Cool. Last game for us, got 2025.
Yeah.
And again, we will talk more in depth about our favorite games of entire 2025. So this is just kind of like a glimpse. And if you've been listening with us for a while, these aren't going to be a shocker to you. But go ahead, Gavin. I'll let you go first.
Oh yeah, real quick, I didn't play Black Myth Wukong, but I know a lot of people that did, including our buddy Kale, who isn't
Mm-hmm.
really a traditional gamer, and I think it's really cool that it just shows how good of a game that was that it got him into that kind of gaming.
Well,
So
I will say I was going to bring up Kale. The bad thing about it for Kale is he liked the art style, he liked the storyline, he was kind of hooked into it. The only thing that was bad for him was how it like beat him into the ground, and he didn't like that. Like
oh
I think
yeah,
he
yeah,
played
yeah,
past
yeah.
the first level, and then he didn't keep with it, which is disappointing. Like I tried to encourage him to get back into it, but
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, it
sidebar. But
is what it
yes,
is. But yeah,
it is very cool.
yeah, so 2025, say it with me, Dispatch. That was my
Dispatch.
yeah, that was my the game I would like to highlight. It was, you know, I it came out at the end. It was kind of for me, it was when it came out, it was like coming up leading into the holiday season is when it
Yep.
first came out, and then I had heard about it a little bit, and then I was like it kinda was just a perfect game, perfect timing for me. Like, I was looking for something to play that wasn't the games I consistently play on
Right.
repeat, and it just I mean, I think we spent over half of the first episode talking about this, and then also your pick coming up here. It's just superb voice acting, great story, excellent concept, can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Gavin's point, I think we're going to create a separate series, not series, but a separate episode specifically for Dispatch and the things that it did really well. The last thing is, if you didn't already hear this from a previous episode, Gavin, I have to give a special shout out to Gavin because he got me to, well, peer pressured me a little bit to play Dispatch, and I'm glad that he did because quite honestly, if it wasn't for the game that I'm about to tell you guys about, Dispatch would be a close second. It's very hard for me to pick between the two here. I think each of them do things really well, and you'll understand what I'm about to say here shortly. Dispatch, just to double down on what Gavin said, is I think it did things very well in terms of art style was amazing, voice acting was amazing, as you mentioned, Gavin. I think it also did things very uniquely, like with what we talked about before, with bringing YouTubers to be the voice acting cast. I was very skeptical when you had told me about that, or when I had heard about that, but it's just a melding of such a cool game. And I think the fact that they did it episodically made it even more enticing because it was kind of like, it was almost like a Netflix show that you got to interact with. And it also had a lot of fun components to it that made it engaging, but it was also like you were watching a TV show, if that makes sense. Like and it was an engaging TV show,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect description. It's like a workplace comedy that you're playing and you're watching it play out as you're doing it. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, great way to describe it. Now, I think anyone that's watched more than one episode of this can probably guess yours, but you want to go ahead and
You
say it?
got it. Yes. Say it with me, kids. Clear Obscure, Expedition 33. By far and away, I think actually looking back at this list here, I mean, the list of the games that I've already said so far, like each of them are great in their own right. I almost feel like Expedition 33 is probably the best out of this list. Close, at least close. Obviously, Bloodborne's in this list too, so I'd probably put Bloodborne still above Expedition 33. But regardless, again, we've talked about this before. We'll talk about it in the future. I think the fact that it was an indie developer, kind of like first onto the scene, had amazing soundtrack because of, and those not aware, the guy that made the soundtrack was a total, I don't want to say a nobody because he definitely wasn't, but he was somebody that the main guy found on Reddit and asked him to come and create a soundtrack specifically for Expedition 33. The cast, the developers, the voice actors, outside of some of them, were quasi new to the industry and didn't necessarily quote unquote know what they were doing at the time. And the amalgamation of all those different factors and having all of this come into one package was just amazing. And I think the fact that they didn't charge full price for this video game is almost like a I don't want to say it's a detriment to them because they almost lost out on revenue that they probably should have because of how good of a game this actually is. Again, I'm glad that it was not a full price game, but I think they deserve all the kudos, all the credit. For all the haters out there that say that this isn't a good game, don't even at me. I don't want to talk to you because it's definitely one of the best games ever. And I think the fact that it took inspiration from games like Final Fantasy, kind of quasi Souls-like gaming. It also took a very interesting story, one that you cared about from the start. I mean, Gavin, I don't know if you felt this way, but like just the opening scene alone, when the gommage happens, I'm not gonna say any spoilers for those people that haven't played it, but I was like crying, like when the gommage happened before they go out on the ship to the first area.
Yes,
Like, yeah, go ahead.
For his first 3 minutes of the game, it's like got you brought almost to tears with how the storytelling and theme I noticed between our two games is that being as successful as they are, a common thread I noticed is kind of they're both a melting pot of non-traditional, like obviously there's video game stuff, but it's non-traditional like things that you would think of that make a successful game. It's like they became a melting pot to make something truly great for both of them. But the thing I liked about Expedition 33 is it doesn't handhold you through explaining what things are. They like come up with all these terminologies for things and they're saying
Like
them in the first
gestural
5
and all
minutes.
this other stuff.
Yeah. And it's like I'm so trained at like in games and stuff, it'll say a gestural and then it'll say like what a
Exactly
gestural
what it
is.
is.
And then
Yeah.
it's exactly what it is. And this game doesn't do that. And I actually really liked it. It treats you like you have intelligence when you're playing the game. It's like they just keep saying gamage, gamage, gamage. You're like, what the heck is that? And then
Mm-hmm.
at the end, if I think had they explained what it is, and like when they're first bring it up, and like, yeah, and they treat you like you're a character that knows everything that's going on, and they're like, yeah, the gamage. If they would have came out and said gamage is blah 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 blah, that way I'll say it that way to avoid spoilers, but
Yeah.
that emotional gut punch wouldn't have been nearly as strong because you're like, it's building up to the gamage. You kind of think you know what's going to happen, and then boom, snap. Like
Yep.
that is crazy. Oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? So
Right.
yeah, I think they did that.
I agree. And I think the last point that I'll say about Expedition 33 before we wrap up this episode, I think the interesting thing too is that each of the characters bring like a unique background to each of the stories. Gustav, who you start out as, like he has an interesting backstory. He also has an interesting game mechanic where he has like his metal arm that he gets to use. I believe I can't remember exactly what it's called, like the actual move, but you get to like know how to use that most effectively to beat your bosses that you're fighting. Same thing with Mael. Same thing with CL. Monoko,
Yeah.
Lune, all of them, like they all have each unique fighting mechanics. And at first, it's very overwhelming. I don't know if you felt the same way, Gavin, but I was like, I don't know how stains work for Lune. I don't know how Mael's stance system works. I don't know how CL's cards work. Like it took me like a little bit more extra brain power and repetition to get through those. But I think that was, to your point, it wasn't handholdy. Like it introduced the concept to you, and then it expected you to kind of like figure out how to best take advantage of that skill set. So I thought that
Yeah,
was unique,
I agree.
and they did a lot of cool things within that game. And again, if for those that haven't played it, highly, highly, highly recommend putting it on your to be played list. And let us know in the comments if you haven't played it and what your perspective is on it too. But Gavin, I know we've been talking for a long time. Any final words for our friends before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I want to start up a little thing we're going to do here going forward, do the video game book club here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come up with a game that's try to keep it $20 or less, and it's going to be a game that we play that Dylan and I will both play, then you guys can play along as well. And then about usually we'll do one a month. So we'll do this is going to be our first episode of the month. So last episode of the month at the beginning or the end of that episode we'll kind of do a little book report on what we thought the game did well or if we didn't like it because not all the games are going to be great, we're not going to like them all, but for this one it's a game I did mention at the beginning, so I do have a head start on you, Dylan. But we're going to go with Escape Ever After, or Escape from Ever After, sorry. Yep, as pull it up here. It's on Steam, just released, fresh release. It's heavily inspired by one of my favorite games of all time, Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door. Very, the very good art style where it feels like you're playing a sort of a storybook. You're your little piece of paper guy, and yeah. So check back at maybe we'll do a midway check to see how we're going along with it, and then the end of the month we'll do our book reports on it.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm excited to play it. I'm actually going to go download it here shortly. I would encourage anybody listening to do the same. As Gavin mentioned, we'll do regular book reports on like how we're thinking about the game, like if we're actually enjoying it. Maybe it's a flop, maybe it won't be. I don't think this one will be, so good start on this recommendation, Gavin. But if you guys have any games in the future too that you guys want us to play from a book club perspective, I mean, Gavin, I don't want to speak for you because this is more your idea than mine. Would you say
Yeah.
mostly try to find like hidden gems or like indie style games that we want to highlight,
Uh,
or does it
Honestly,
matter?
I kind of like the idea of keeping it like a budget so we can keep it like,
Yeah,
doesn't have to be
accessible.
indie, but let's make it more accessible for everyone else. So yeah, it doesn't have to, hard set price, but if it's $20 and under, shoot it to me and we'll hopefully get it in a future episode.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you, Gavin, for taking some time on your day to record episode 5 for us. For the folks that are still on and listening, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Again, highly encourage you guys to watch our previous episodes 2, 3, and 4 to see any other nostalgic games that we feel deserve some extra attention, extra sun, or extra light, I should say. And we want to thank you for watching this video as well. Again, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. We do try to post every week on Wednesdays. So keep an eye out for our next episode that will be dropping soon. And again, if you guys have any comments, questions, or anything that you guys want to chat with us about, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.